If Henry Bailey had understood what that spring evening would eventually cost him, he would have paid much closer attention to the small changes that began months earlier. Because betrayals like this rarely begin with one catastrophic decision. They begin with small permissions, a delayed reply, a longer conversation, a private joke, and by the time the truth becomes visible, the emotional damage is usually already irreversible. Henry Bailey was 44 years old when the first invisible crack appeared in what he believed was a stable life. From the outside, everything about him suggested reliability. He owned Bailey Restoration Group, a respected renovation company in Charlotte, North Carolina that specialized in restoring historic homes and high-end interiors. His schedule was booked months in advance. His clients trusted him. His employees respected him. Henry wasn't flashy. He wasn't loud, but he was dependable. The kind of man people called when something important needed to be done right the first time. His house reflected that same philosophy. A quiet neighborhood, mature trees, wide streets where nothing dramatic ever seemed to happen. The type of place where people expected marriages to last and children to grow up safely. And for 18 years, Henry believed he had. His wife Victoria had built her own successful career in corporate marketing. Smart, composed, driven. She had always been the more socially confident of the two, able to navigate corporate politics with an ease Henry admired but never tried to imitate. Together, they had built what most people would have described as a good life. Their oldest son Ryan was 17 and already talking about engineering programs. Analytical like his father, quietly observant. Connor, 14, had Henry's hands and his impatience. He loved working in the garage and asked questions about tools most adults didn't understand. And Lily, 10, had Victoria's emotional intelligence. She noticed tones, pauses, things unsaid. Sometimes Henry suspected she understood more about people than either parent realized. For nearly 2 decades, Henry had considered himself fortunate. Not because life had been easy, but because it had been difficult. They had faced it together. They had survived financial stress during slow construction years. They had survived illness in Victoria's family. They had survived the ordinary pressures that quietly end many marriages. Which is why Henry didn't recognize the danger when it first appeared, because it didn't look like danger. It looked like ambition. Victoria simply began working later. At first it was occasional, then weekly, then predictable. New campaigns, new clients, new strategic initiatives, all reasonable explanations. Henry believed her, because trust doesn't disappear because of schedule changes. But other things changed too, small things. Her phone never seemed to leave her hand anymore. She angled the screen away unconsciously. Notifications appeared that she cleared instantly. A new passcode replaced the old one she had used for years. She began stepping into other rooms to take calls. Her voice dropped lower during conversations. Not enough to accuse, enough to notice. One evening, she arrived home well past 9. Henry was finishing paperwork at the kitchen island. "Long day?" he asked. She placed her bag down slowly. "Quarter review meetings. Everyone's stressed." Henry nodded. "I kept dinner ready." "I already ate with the team," she answered quickly. "We ordered in." She kissed his cheek. It was affectionate in form, empty in feeling. Henry noticed, but he said nothing. Because after 18 years, you don't interrogate someone over instincts. You wait for facts. Still, patterns began to accumulate. Weekend work sessions that didn't match company announcements, ride receipts from parts of the city she rarely worked in, moments where she seemed distracted when the children spoke, moments where she seemed almost startled if Henry entered a room quietly. Still, he told himself he might be imagining things. Maybe she was stressed. Maybe he had been working too much. Maybe this was just what long marriages looked like after years together. Until the awards banquet. Victoria's company held it every spring. What had once been a modest dinner had become a formal corporate event as the firm expanded. This year it was held at the Hawthorne Grand. Formal invitations, black tie optional, executive networking. Henry had his suit pressed. He even bought Victoria a bracelet he remembered her admiring months earlier. A small gesture, an attempt to reconnect without saying it out loud. When Victoria stepped out of their bedroom ready for the evening, Henry felt something he hadn't felt in months. Hope. Her emerald dress was elegant without being excessive. Her hair styled the way she used to wear it years earlier. For a brief moment, she looked like the woman he had fallen in love with. "You look beautiful," he said honestly. She smiled. You clean up pretty well yourself. For a second, it felt normal, familiar. On the drive there, Henry allowed himself a quiet possibility. Maybe nothing was wrong. Maybe tonight would reset whatever distance had formed. The ballroom glowed with corporate confidence. Glass, light, carefully managed luxury. Conversations about growth projections and market positioning floated through the room. Victoria moved naturally through it, confident, respected, in control. Henry had always admired that about her. People greeted him with polite familiarity. He wasn't part of their industry, but long exposure had made him recognizable. Then someone new joined the conversation. Marcus Whitmore, recently transferred regional director, late 30s, athletic, effortlessly confident. The kind of man who seemed used to being taken seriously the moment he entered a room. Introductions were made, handshakes exchanged. Marcus held Henry's gaze just a second longer than necessary. So you're Henry, Marcus said with a smooth smile. Victoria talks about you a lot. Something about the phrasing didn't sit right. Henry smiled politely. Interesting, he replied evenly. I haven't heard much about you. If Marcus noticed the edge beneath the politeness, he didn't react. We've been working closely on a restructuring project, Marcus said. She's been invaluable. Victoria stepped slightly closer to Marcus as he spoke, a movement small enough to dismiss. But Henry didn't miss it. She's always been dedicated, Henry said calmly. Marcus nodded slowly. That's exactly what I appreciate about her. The sentence lingered just slightly too long. The rest of the evening confirmed something Henry didn't want to name. Marcus always seemed nearby. Their conversations had a rhythm that suggested familiarity, laughter that came too easily, small touches that lasted just a second too long. Nothing explicit, nothing provable, just wrong. Dinner separated them. Victoria sat with executives, Henry with spouses and managers. From across the room, he watched Marcus lean toward her repeatedly during conversations, close enough that it required trust to ignore. After dinner came speeches, then music. Henry and Victoria danced once. Her posture was correct, distant, like she was fulfilling an obligation. She excused herself quickly afterward. Henry returned to the bar. Time passed. 30 minutes. 40. Eventually, he realized he hadn't seen her in a while. He checked the ballroom, the lobby, the terrace. Nothing. Marcus was also gone. A quiet pressure formed in Henry's chest. He texted, "Where are you?" No reply. 5 minutes. 10. He approached one of Victoria's coworkers casually. "Have you seen Victoria?" "I think she stepped outside with Marcus," the woman replied carefully. "Something about discussing a proposal." At nearly 11 at night, during a gala. Henry thanked her, walked outside slowly, methodically, and then he heard it. Victoria's laugh. The same laugh he had known for nearly 20 years. Coming from the darker edge of the parking area. Henry didn't rush, didn't call out, didn't make noise. He simply walked closer. And then he saw them. Not kissing. Not yet. But standing too close to pretend innocence. Her hand resting lightly on Marcus's chest. His fingers touching her hair. Private gravity. Private familiarity. Henry stopped walking. For a brief second, anger surged. Instinctive, immediate. But just as quickly, something else replaced it. Control. He turned around, walked back inside, ordered another drink, and waited. When Victoria finally returned nearly an hour later, she looked composed. Too composed. "There you are," she said lightly. "I've been looking for you." "I've been here," Henry replied calmly. She touched his arm. "You ready to go?" "I'm exhausted." Henry studied her face, trying to find the woman he had built a life with. Instead, he saw distance. "Yes," he said quietly. "Let's go home." The drive back was filled with surface conversation, event details, promotions, food, speeches. Nothing real, nothing honest. Henry responded when necessary, but internally he was already reconstructing timelines, re-examining months, patterns beginning to connect. At home, one small detail confirmed what instinct had already begun to accept. A man's suit jacket draped over Victoria's arm. "Whose jacket is that?" Henry asked quietly. A pause. Brief. Then, Oh, someone was cold earlier, so Marcus lent it. Too quick. Too smooth. Henry nodded slowly. I see. Inside, Victoria went upstairs quickly. Bathroom door closed. Shower running. Henry didn't follow. He walked into his office instead, closed the door, sat in the dark, and for the first time allowed himself to consider something he had been avoiding for months. Not panic, not rage. Just a quiet realization. Something fundamental had changed. The next morning began like any other. Coffee brewing. Breakfast routines, school schedules. Normal life continued as if nothing had shifted. But something had. And Henry understood something important as he watched his family move through ordinary routines. Trust rarely breaks loudly. It doesn't shatter like glass. It dissolves quietly. Until one day you realize silence feels different. And the silence in that house was only beginning. The next morning felt almost disturbingly normal, which Henry would later realize was the most dangerous part. Because betrayal rarely destroys routine immediately, routine continues. Breakfast still happens. Coffee still brews. Children still argue about homework. And somewhere inside that normalcy, truth begins quietly rearranging itself. Henry woke before sunrise, not because of an alarm, because his mind refused to rest. Victoria lay beside him, turned away, breathing evenly. Whether she was truly asleep or pretending, he couldn't tell anymore. That uncertainty alone said everything. He moved carefully out of bed without waking her and went downstairs. Ryan was already in the kitchen, textbooks spread across the table, calculator in hand. Morning, Ryan said. Henry started the coffee maker. Morning, studying already? Physics exam. Henry nodded approvingly. You'll handle it. Ryan hesitated, then asked quietly, Is Mom okay? Henry paused. Why do you ask? Ryan shrugged slightly. She's different. Henry waited. Ryan rarely spoke without reason. Different how? Ryan chose his words carefully. She's here, but not really here. That hit harder than Henry expected. Busy with work, Henry replied calmly. Ryan didn't argue, but he didn't look convinced either. Connor stumbled into the kitchen next, still half asleep. Is there bacon? Henry allowed himself a small smile. There will be if you wake your sister. Connor groaned. Lily arrived last. She didn't say anything at first, just watched Henry closely, then asked quietly, Is Mom mad at us? Henry felt something tighten in his chest. No, he said gently. Why would you think that? She doesn't look at us the same, Lily answered. Children always notice first. Henry understood something then. Whatever was happening between him and Victoria, the children were already feeling it, and that was unacceptable. He made a quiet decision. Whatever truth he discovered, he would control how it affected them. Victoria came downstairs 20 minutes later, already dressed, already checking her phone. Morning, she said quickly, heading straight for coffee. I'm heading into the office for a few hours. Today? Henry asked casually. It's Saturday. Deadline pressure, she answered. Too fast, too automatic. Connor looked down at his plate. You said you'd come to my game. A pause. I'll try, Victoria said. Henry knew immediately she wouldn't, and Connor knew too. After she left, the house felt heavier. Henry watched his children process disappointment in different ways. Ryan withdrew into logic. Connor is irritated. Lily went into quiet sadness. That was the moment Henry decided something internally. He would not allow uncertainty to become chaos. He needed facts, not emotions. Facts. That afternoon, Victoria didn't come to the game. She didn't answer calls. She arrived home after 7 p.m. carrying takeout and forced enthusiasm. Henry watched her perform normalcy. Too much enthusiasm. Too many questions. Overcompensation. Later that night, after the children slept, Henry sat alone in his workshop, running his fingers across the unfinished oak surface of a dining table. Woodworking had always clarified his thinking. Wood never lied. It either fit or it didn't. Relationships should be the same. By midnight, Henry had reached a decision. He would not confront her. Not yet. Emotion without information creates mistakes, and Henry Bailey did not make careless moves. The next morning, he left early, told Victoria he needed to check a supply delivery. Instead, he drove to 3 different stores, paid cash, bought, a small voice-activated recorder, a magnetic GPS tracker, a second phone. He sat in the parking lot afterwards, staring at the items. Was this who he had become? A man investigating his own wife? He didn't like the answer, but uncertainty was worse. When he returned home, Victoria was making pancakes, playing the perfect mother, laughing, asking about tests, braiding Lily's hair. For a moment, Henry almost doubted himself, until her phone vibrated, and her entire expression changed, just slightly. But Henry saw it. "I'm so sorry," she said suddenly. "Client emergency." Connor didn't even react this time. He just nodded like he expected it. That hurt Henry more than anger would have. After she left, Henry began quietly building his timeline. Not dramatic, methodical, like reviewing project plans. That afternoon, he logged into their shared financial accounts. 6 months of statements, then 9. Patterns appeared quickly. Restaurant charges on nights she worked late, ride services to unfamiliar neighborhoods, a boutique purchase he had never seen, hotel charges. Henry didn't react emotionally. He documented dates, times, locations. Then something worse appeared, a credit account he didn't recognize, in her name only. He accessed what he legally could through shared financial records, more restaurants, more hotels. A resort weekend she had called a training seminar. By the time Victoria came home that evening, Henry no longer had suspicions. He had structure, and structure meant control. He closed his laptop before she entered, face calm, voice steady. Dinner felt artificial. Victoria trying too hard. Children are responding cautiously. Everyone is adapting to something nobody named. That night, Victoria approached him while he brushed his teeth. "I'm sorry I've been distant," she said. Henry looked at her reflection. "Work stress?" She nodded quickly. "Exactly." A perfect answer. Prepared? Practiced. Henry nodded. "I understand." And in that moment, something important happened internally. Not anger, not heartbreak, distance, emotional distance. Because Henry now understood something critical. The man who reacts emotionally loses leverage. The man who observes controls the outcome. That night after she fell asleep, Henry placed the GPS tracker under her vehicle. Hands steady, no hesitation. Because now this was no longer about suspicion. This was about truth. And Henry Bailey had decided something he could never undo. He would learn everything, quietly, carefully, completely. Because if his marriage was ending, it would not be because he lost control. It would be because he understood exactly what he was dealing with. And somewhere deep down, a different kind of man was beginning to emerge. Not the trusting husband, not the devastated victim. Something calmer, something colder, something far more dangerous to anyone lying to him. And Henry didn't yet realize it. But the moment he chose information over emotion, the balance of power had already started to shift. The real shift didn't happen the night Henry found proof. It happened the moment he stopped reacting emotionally. Because the moment emotion leaves, strategy begins. For the next 2 weeks, Henry behaved exactly the same. Predictable, supportive, calm, which made Victoria relax. And that was intentional. Henry began testing her without her realizing it. Small things first. "Do you still work with Marcus on that restructuring project?" he asked casually one evening. Her answer came instantly. "No, they moved me to another account." Henry nodded. He already knew that was false. The GPS data showed otherwise. Lie number 1 confirmed. Later that week, he tried another test. "Your company newsletter mentioned a Chicago expansion. Are you involved?" A half-second hesitation. "No, that's another division." Lie number 2. Henry didn't confront. He cataloged. Because lies reveal more when uninterrupted. The GPS tracker continued building a pattern. Marcus's apartment, a restaurant Henry now recognized from credit statements, a boutique hotel, regular, predictable, routine, which meant the affair had moved past excitement into structure, and structure creates vulnerability. One Thursday, Henry heard Victoria on the phone in the garage, her voice soft, different. "I know. I miss you too." Pause. "I'm trying to figure out how to handle this without everything blowing up." Pause. "Just give me a little more time." Henry didn't move, didn't interrupt, just let the recorder in his jacket pocket capture everything. Evidence didn't just protect him legally, it protected him psychologically. Because now there was no room left for doubt. The final confirmation came that weekend. Victoria claimed a corporate training retreat. Henry already knew the GPS destination, a lake cabin 2 hours away. Marcus's vehicle parked there overnight. Henry didn't confront, he prepared. Monday morning he met with an attorney, Daniel Harper, former military, direct, no theatrics. Henry appreciated that. North Carolina is a no-fault state, Daniel explained. But behavior still matters in custody arguments. Henry slid the documentation folder across the desk. Hotel receipts, timelines, recordings, GPS logs. Daniel reviewed quietly, then looked up. "This is thorough." Henry didn't respond. "You want primary custody?" "Yes." "Why?" "Because my children need stability." Daniel nodded slowly. "With this documentation, that's realistic." They discussed assets, accounts, property protection, logistics. Henry left with something he hadn't felt in months. Not relief, certainty. And certainty is powerful. That week, Henry quietly began restructuring his life. Not dramatically, carefully. He opened a new account, moved funds legally advised by counsel, copied financial records, documented household assets. Not revenge, preparation. Victoria remained unaware. She continued performing normal life between absences. Promises to the children, missed commitments, expensive guilt gifts. Henry watched it all with growing emotional distance. The man she believed she knew was already gone. The confrontation came Monday evening. Victoria's key didn't work. She rang the bell. Henry opened the door calmly. "My key won't turn," she said. "I changed the locks," Henry replied. Confusion first, then tension. "Why?" "We need to talk." The children were at Rebecca's house, deliberately. Victoria noticed immediately. "Where are the kids?" "Safe." That word landed heavily. She followed him inside cautiously. Something in Henry's posture had changed. Less accommodating, more controlled. They sat facing each other. Henry didn't rush. Silence is pressure. Finally, he spoke. "How long?" Victoria froze. "What?" Henry met her eyes. "How long has the relationship with Marcus been going on?" Denial came instantly. "He's a coworker." Henry raised one hand slightly. Not aggressive, just final. "Don't insult my intelligence." He placed his phone on the table. Pressed play. Her recorded voice filled the room. Soft, intimate, undeniable. Her face was drained of color. Henry stopped the recording. No anger in his voice, just precision. "I know about the hotels." Pause. "The hidden account." Pause. "The weekend trips." Pause. "The lies." Victoria tried again. "We were going through a rough patch." Henry shook his head slightly. "No." That word carried more authority than shouting would have. If you were unhappy, you had options. Counseling, conversation, separation. You chose deception. Tears started, but Henry noticed something important. They were afraid of tears, not remorse. 4 months, she whispered. Henry nodded once. Information confirmed. "What do you want?" she asked quietly. Henry answered without hesitation. "I filed for divorce this morning." Shock hit immediately. "You didn't even talk to me?" Henry looked at her steadily. "You've been talking to someone else for months." Silence. "What about our marriage?" she asked. Henry answered calmly. "I protected it." Pause. "You ended it." That landed. "What about the kids?" "I'm requesting primary custody." Panic appeared. "You can't take them." Henry remained calm. "I didn't." Pause. "You stepped away." That hit harder than accusations. Victoria shifted tactics. Blame phase. "You were always working, always in your shop." Henry didn't react. "If you needed attention, you could have asked." "You stopped seeing me," she insisted. Henry answered quietly. "I stopped being enough when you decided someone new was more exciting." Silence again. Then desperation. "I love you." Henry studied her. For a long moment, then answered with devastating calm. "You love stability." Pause. You love security. Pause. You love what I built. Pause. But love doesn't lie for months. That broke something in her expression. What happens now? She asked. Henry answered clinically. You collect your personal belongings this week. Pause. We follow the legal process. Pause. The children stay here. You can't decide that. I'm not. Pause. The court will. Her anger finally surfaced. You planned this. Henry didn't deny it. I prepared. She stepped closer. What kind of husband investigates his wife? Henry answered quietly. The kind who realizes he's been lied to. The slap came suddenly, sharp, emotional, desperate. Henry didn't react, didn't raise his voice, didn't step back, just looked at her calmly. Did that help? He asked. Victoria's expression shifted immediately. Shock, regret, fear. She stepped back slowly, and for the first time, she realized something important. The man she thought she could emotionally control was gone. In his place stood someone she didn't understand anymore. Someone calm, someone prepared, someone she could no longer manipulate. And in that moment, the power balance between them completely changed. Because Victoria had expected anger, begging, negotiation. Instead, she got something far more unsettling: control. And Henry Bailey understood something she didn't yet realize. The moment a man stops trying to win back someone who betrayed him, he becomes impossible to control. And this was only the beginning of consequences. Victoria stood frozen for a moment after the slap, as if even she hadn't expected herself to cross that line. Henry said nothing. That silence hit her harder than outrage would have, because anger would have given her something to fight. Silence gave her nothing. No opening, no emotional leverage, no chaos to hide inside, only consequences. I'm sorry, she said finally. But even now the words sounded disoriented, as if she wasn't apologizing for betrayal so much as for losing control of the scene. Henry held her gaze. The children will be home soon, he said calmly. I'd rather they not see you like this. That landed. Victoria stared at him, trying to determine whether there was still anything left she could manipulate. There wasn't. This isn't over, she said, grabbing her purse with trembling hands. I will fight you for them, for the house, for everything. Henry nodded once. That's your right. He paused. But before you decide what kind of fight you want, think carefully about what the children have already seen. Victoria's jaw tightened. Then she turned and left, the front door closing behind her with a force meant to sound powerful, but landing hollow in the empty house. Henry remained standing for several seconds after she was gone. The adrenaline drained slowly. His legs felt heavier than they should have. For the first time since the confrontation began, the full weight of reality moved through him without resistance. His marriage was over, not wounded, not fragile. Over. The life he had spent nearly 2 decades building around a shared future had been dismantled quietly by choices made in conference rooms, hotel rooms, parked cars, and lies told over breakfast. And yet beneath the grief, there was something else. Relief. Not joy. Never that. But relief. The uncertainty was gone. The doubt was gone. The feeling that he was losing his mind inside his own house was gone. Painful truth, Henry realized, was still easier to carry than prolonged deception. He called Rebecca, told her he was ready for the children to come home. The next morning, Victoria returned, calmer, better dressed, more controlled. Henry noticed immediately. This version of her was strategic, not remorseful. She asked to speak to the children alone. Henry allowed it, but stayed close enough to intervene if needed. He remained in the kitchen while muted voices rose and fell in the living room. Lily crying. Connor speaks only once, low and tight. Ryan's voice was sharper than Henry had ever heard it. When they emerged, the emotional landscape of the family had changed permanently. Lily was in tears, clinging to Victoria. Connor's expression had gone flat in the way boys sometimes go flat when anger feels too dangerous to show. Ryan looked almost colder than Henry. At 17, he had already crossed into the age where betrayal no longer feels abstract. I'll call every day, Victoria was saying to Lily, and we'll still see each other all the time. Then why can't you stay here? Lily asked through tears. Victoria looked briefly toward Henry, then back down. "It's complicated, sweetheart." "No," Ryan said. His voice cut through the room. "It isn't." Victoria turned toward him. "Ryan." "No," he repeated. "You don't get to say it's complicated." Connor looked down at the floor. Ryan kept going. "You lied. You kept leaving. You missed everything. And now you're acting like this just happened on its own." Victoria's face tightened. "There are parts of adult relationships you don't understand." Ryan gave a short, joyless laugh. "I understand enough." The room went still. Henry stepped forward, not to protect Victoria from truth, but to keep the moment from becoming something the children would never forget. "That's enough for now." Ryan looked at him, stunned. "You're stopping me?" "I'm stopping this conversation before it becomes cruel," Henry said quietly. That difference mattered. Victoria looked at him then with something that might once have been gratitude. Henry ignored it. Lily hugged her mother tightly before Victoria left. Connor allowed a brief, awkward embrace. Ryan barely moved. When the door closed again, the house entered a new phase. Not shock anymore. Aftershock. The following weeks were brutal in ways public stories never fully capture. There was no dramatic soundtrack, no clean transition, only routines being rebuilt around absence. Henry adjusted his work schedule permanently. He front-loaded meetings into school hours, took design calls from home, had groceries delivered when needed, learned which meals Lily would actually eat when she was sad, figured out how to sign field trip forms, supervise Connor's science project, proof Ryan's scholarship essays, and still keep Bailey Restoration Group running without letting clients sense the fracture beneath the surface. The children adapted unevenly. Ryan hardened. Connor withdrew. Lily kept asking whether families could be put back together if everyone tried harder. That question nearly broke Henry every time. Victoria rented a luxury apartment across the city. For appearances, Henry suspected. Or habit. At first, she tried to compensate the only way she still knew how. Money, activities, gestures. Designer sneakers for Connor. A new tablet for Lily. An expensive watch for Ryan that he left untouched in its box for 2 weeks. Weekend outings that looked impressive on paper. But children, Henry realized, are more difficult to deceive than adults. They can sense when affection is trying to outrun guilt. One Sunday evening after returning from Victoria's place, Connor tossed an amusement park wristband onto the counter. "How was it?" Henry asked. Connor shrugged. "Fine." That alone told Henry it hadn't been. Later, Ryan stopped in the doorway of Henry's office. "She's trying too hard." Henry looked up. "Maybe she doesn't know what else to do." Ryan leaned against the frame. "Marcus dumped her." Henry went still. "Who told you that?" "I heard her on the phone when Lily couldn't find her backpack." He paused. "She was crying." That information settled into place with grim logic. Henry learned more 2 days later from Daniel Harper. Marcus Whitmore had ended things within weeks of Victoria moving out. Once the affair stopped being exciting and started involving legal filings, custody schedules, and reputational risk, he had backed away. Fast. According to someone at the firm, he had already shifted his attention to another woman in the company. Younger, unattached, simpler. Henry felt no satisfaction, only a cold recognition of pattern. Victoria had detonated her family for a man who disappeared the moment the consequences became real. And that was only the personal side. The professional collapse came next. Affairs inside companies are not unusual. Affairs that spill into separation, custody disputes, and whispered allegations involving an executive, however, attract attention fast. Especially when the woman involved had already missed deliverables, left meetings early, and built her recent credibility on late-night strategic work that now looked very different in retrospect. It began with whispers, then distance, then exclusion. Victoria's calls stopped being returned as quickly. A client account was reassigned. She was quietly removed from a leadership presentation she had expected to headline. Natalie Grant, the co-worker who had once covered for her twice without asking questions, stopped responding to personal texts. Corporate shame rarely arrives as one dramatic explosion. It arrives as rooms cooling when you enter, as meetings you are no longer invited to, as people choosing caution over friendship. Victoria had built much of her identity around being admired. Now she was being tolerated. That may have hurt her more than the divorce. The real public collapse happened at the temporary custody hearing. Henry hadn't wanted spectacle. But Victoria's attorney made a strategic error. They tried to reframe the narrative, paint Henry as controlling, rigid, emotionally unavailable. A man so obsessed with order that his wife had felt invisible for years. It was clever, potentially effective, until evidence met narrative. Daniel Harper dismantled the argument with surgical precision. Calendar logs, text gaps, school attendance records, photographs from games, recitals, parent nights, science fairs, records showing Henry's presence over and over again. Then financial documentation. Then timeline inconsistencies. Then the recordings. Not too much, just enough. Enough to show deception wasn't a lapse. It was a system, a pattern, a double life maintained at the direct expense of family obligations. Victoria sat across the courtroom, shrinking by degrees as each piece entered the record. Her attorney kept objecting. Daniel kept winning. The judge, an older woman with the expression of someone long immune to theatrics, asked very few questions at first. Then she started asking the only kind that mattered. "Mrs. Bailey, how many school events did you miss in the months before separation?" Victoria hesitated. "I don't know exactly." Daniel provided the number. The judge wrote it down. "Mrs. Bailey, were you involved in an extramarital relationship during that period?" Victoria tried caution. "I made mistakes in my marriage." The judge did not look up. "That was not my question." Silence. Then, "Yes." The word changed the room. Not legally, perhaps, but psychologically. Truth stated plainly always does. When Henry testified, he did not try to destroy her. That was part of why he was credible. He answered directly, calmly. He described the routine, the children, the adjustments he had made, the activities he had attended, the moments he knew something was wrong. He never editorialized, never dramatized. He didn't need to. Reality was doing enough damage on its own. Then Ryan asked to speak. Henry had hoped to protect him from that. But Ryan insisted, and once he took the stand, the hearing tilted permanently. At 17, Ryan had the composure of someone who had been forced to grow up too quickly. "I love my mother," he said. That surprised everyone, including Victoria. Ryan continued, "But love and trust are not the same thing." The courtroom went completely silent. "My dad didn't ask me to say that. He actually asked me not to make this harder than it already is." He looked briefly at Henry. "He's the one who stayed consistent. He was there, every time." Then he looked at the judge. "Whatever adults want to call what happened, we lived with it long before anybody filed paperwork." That line did more damage than any attorney could have done, because it was true, and because it came from the one witness no one could accuse of strategy. Victoria cried then. Not elegantly, not quietly. The kind of crying that comes when a person realizes the story they were telling themselves can no longer survive contact with reality. The judge recessed briefly. When she returned, her ruling was measured and firm. Primary physical custody to Henry. Visitation to Victoria on alternating weekends and one midweek evening. The family home remained with Henry and the children. Financial terms to follow standard procedure. No dramatic gavel, no cinematic flourish. Just consequences formalized into law. Victoria's face lost what remained of its structure as the ruling was read. Outside the courtroom, she approached Henry. Not angry this time, just hollow. "You got what you wanted," she said. Henry looked at her for a long moment. "No." His voice stayed quiet. "What I wanted was the life we had before you started lying." She flinched. He continued. "This is just what was left." That was the first time she looked truly broken. Not because she had lost her hearing, but because for the first time she understood the scale of what she had actually destroyed. Not just a marriage, not just her image, her place, her authority, her children's trust. The private certainty that she could make a terrible choice and still remain central in everyone's life. That illusion was gone now. Over the following weeks, the fallout widened. Some friends quietly chose sides, others disappeared altogether. A couple Henry had once hosted for dinner sent a cautious message expressing support for both of them, then were photographed at a rooftop bar with Victoria and Marcus's old work circle the next weekend. People reveal themselves quickly around scandal. Henry took note, said nothing, kept moving. Victoria, meanwhile, continued unraveling. The polished version of her came apart in fragments. A late-night voicemail she never should have sent. A pleading text asking whether they could handle things privately from now on. an emotional call about how none of this was supposed to happen this way. Henry responded only through counsel. That drove her further into panic. Because silence from a calm man feels very different from silence during an argument. Argument leaves hope. Silence removes it. The final collapse came not in court, but at Lily's school music recital. Victoria arrived late, saw Henry seated with the children, centered naturally in the life she used to move through without thinking. When she approached, Lily was polite but subdued. Connor nodded. Ryan barely acknowledged her. Other parents noticed the tension immediately. So did Victoria. The seat beside Henry remained empty. Not offered, not discussed. And for perhaps the first time in her adult life, she had to stand in public and feel what exclusion actually felt like. No one embarrassed her. No one confronted her. That was what made it worse. The room had simply reorganized itself without her. She sat 3 rows back alone. And Henry, watching Lily on stage from beside his sons, understood something he hadn't been able to understand earlier in the story. Power is not loud. Real power is emotional steadiness after betrayal. Real power is being the one the children still trust. Real power is letting consequences arrive without needing to announce them. By then, Victoria had lost Marcus, lost status at work, lost credibility in court, lost the easy loyalty of friends. And most devastating of all, she had lost the unquestioned central place she once held in her own family. Henry didn't celebrate any of it, but he no longer looked away from it either. Because this was the part nobody warns you about when they choose excitement over loyalty. The affair feels private at first, until the consequences become public. And once they do, they have a way of stripping a person down to exactly who they really are. Victoria Bailey was finally learning that. And Henry Bailey was no longer the man she had betrayed in secret. He was the man who had survived long enough to watch the illusion collapse in daylight. Outside the courthouse, Victoria looked at Henry like she was still trying to understand what had happened. Not legally, emotionally. The ruling had been clear enough. What she couldn't process was how thoroughly the center of gravity had shifted. For years, she had moved through life with a quiet certainty that, no matter what she risked, she would still remain essential. Still central. Still wanted. Still protected by the simple fact that she was a wife, mother, familiar presence, history. But now history wasn't protecting her. It was indicative of her. "You got what you wanted," she said again, though this time there was less bitterness in her voice and more exhaustion. Henry studied her for a moment. "No," he said quietly. "What I wanted was the life we had before any of this started." That hit harder than anger ever could have. Victoria looked away first. Then, after a long pause, she said the one thing pride had probably delayed for months. He ended it. Henry wasn't surprised. He had known for weeks. Still, he let her say it. "The day after I moved out," she added, her voice thinning around the edges. "The day after everything became real." Henry gave a small nod. "I know." That made her look up. "How?" "People talk," he said. Then after a pause, "And men like Marcus don't usually stay once consequences start costing them something." Her expression crumpled. Not dramatically, quietly. That was the thing about final collapse, Henry realized. It rarely looked cinematic in real life. It looked like a person running out of ways to lie to themselves. "I ruined everything," she whispered. For the first time in months, Henry felt something close to compassion move through the wreckage. Not love, not longing. Just the calm sadness reserved for someone who had made irreversible choices and finally understood they were irreversible. "You still have the kids," he said. Victoria laughed once through tears. It was a broken sound. "They don't trust me." "Not yet," Henry replied. "Trust isn't something you ask for after this. It's something you earn back slowly, and without asking to be rewarded for it." She nodded. That seemed to land. Then she asked the question she had been circling for months. "Will you ever forgive me?" Henry didn't answer quickly. He respected the question too much to lie. "Maybe one day," he said, "but forgiveness and going back are not the same thing." Victoria lowered her eyes. "I know." That was the first truly honest exchange they had had in a long time. No manipulation, no performance, just truth stripped of costume. She left a minute later, not with dignity exactly, but with the first fragile outline of accountability. And for Henry, that was enough. Life did not become easy after that. Narration stories often rush this part. Real life doesn't. The children adjusted unevenly to the new structure. Ryan, already halfway into adulthood, carried his anger like something compressed and hot. He rarely spoke about his mother unless necessary, but Henry noticed the edge in him slowly softening over time into something more useful than rage. Connor processed everything through motion: soccer, workouts, long bike rides, silence. He wasn't the kind of boy who cried where people could see him, but Henry found him more than once sitting in the garage alone, staring at nothing, trying to sort feelings too complicated for a 14-year-old to name. Lily took the longest. She still loved her mother with the pure stubbornness children often reserve for the parent who disappoints them most. She asked difficult questions at inconvenient moments. Did Mom love us when she lied? Can people be good and do bad things at the same time? If she misses us, why did she leave? Henry answered as carefully as he could. Never lying, never poisoning, never protecting Victoria from the truth so much that the children felt gaslit by it. That balance became its own kind of discipline. Meanwhile, Victoria began trying in quieter ways. The gifts stopped, the forced outings stopped, the overcompensating stopped. She started showing up consistently instead. School events, piano recitals, Connor's games, parent meetings, not perfectly, but regularly. And in a story like this, regularity matters more than speeches. Months passed, then more. The anger in the house began changing shape. What had once felt like damage started becoming scar tissue. Visible, permanent, but no longer bleeding. Henry's business grew, not because betrayal had somehow made him stronger in the simplistic way internet stories like to claim, but because pain had stripped away distractions. Bailey Restoration Group expanded into a second design space. His waiting list lengthened. A regional magazine ran a feature on one of his restoration projects, praising the precision and restraint of his work. Restraint. Henry almost laughed when he read that word. If only they knew. At home, the children settled into new versions of themselves. Ryan left for college and came back more thoughtful, less sharp-edged. Connor became steadier. Lily, older now, stopped asking whether families could be put back together and started asking instead whether families could become something new and still be real. Henry thought that was one of the smartest questions anyone had asked him. Victoria's life moved in the opposite direction. Her standing at work never fully recovered. She eventually left the firm. Too many whispers, too many sidelong looks, too many rooms that went quiet a second too late. She took a role at a smaller company for less money and less prestige, but by then prestige was no longer the point. Survival was. And maybe that was the first healthy thing that had happened to her in years. Their co-parenting relationship improved slowly, painfully, through logistics more than emotion. Schedule adjustments, medical forms, holiday negotiations. Gradually, the old warfare cooled into something almost functional. Not friendship, never that, but workable peace. Then, just over a year after the divorce was finalized, Henry received a call from Victoria's mother. Victoria had been hospitalized after a breakdown at work. Severe depression, anxiety, exhaustion. Months of barely holding herself together finally collapsing all at once. Henry stood very still while he listened. For a long moment after the call ended, he simply remained in his office with one hand resting on the desk, feeling the complicated weight of old history move through him. This was the woman who had betrayed him, the woman who had detonated their family, the woman who had lied to his face and to their children. And this was also the mother of his children, the woman who had once built a life beside him. Both things were true. That was the uncomfortable part about emotional maturity, Henry had learned. It leaves less room for clean hatred. He told the children that evening. Ryan, home from college for the weekend, absorbed the news quietly. Connor asked practical questions first. Lily cried immediately. The next day, Henry drove them to the hospital. He almost waited outside. It felt more appropriate, more distant, more self-protective. But Ryan touched his arm before they went in. "You should come too." Henry hesitated, then nodded. Victoria looked smaller in the hospital bed than Henry had ever seen her. Not physically, existentially. Like life had sanded down every sharp, performative edge and left only a human being underneath. When she saw all of them enter, her face changed. Then her eyes found Henry standing behind the children. For a second, she looked as though she might cry before anyone had even said a word. Lily went to her first, hugging carefully around the IV line. Connor stepped in after that, awkward and sincere. Ryan stayed back the longest, then moved closer and asked, with more gentleness than Henry expected, "How are you feeling?" Victoria laughed weakly. "Embarrassed." Ryan nodded once. "That's fair." Henry almost smiled despite himself. The next hour was quiet, grounded. The children talked about school, teachers, music, games, things so normal they almost felt sacred in a hospital room. Henry mostly listened, watched, understood. At the end of visiting hours, the children left reluctantly. Henry was last to turn toward the door. "Henry," he paused. Victoria looked at him with an honesty he had once begged for and long since stopped expecting. "I am sorry," she said. "Not in the way people say it because they want something. I know I don't want anything from you anymore. I am." Henry believed her, not because the apology repaired anything, but because for once it wasn't trying to. "I know," he said. Her eyes searched his face. "Do you still hate me?" Henry considered that carefully. He owed her a true answer. "No," he said at last. "I did for a while, or something close to it. But hate is heavy, and I got tired of carrying things that belonged to your choices." Victoria started crying then, quietly, without performance, without self-defense, without trying to redirect blame. Just grief, pure and unprotected. "I lost everything," she whispered. Henry stepped a little closer. "No," he said softly. "You lost the version of life you thought would survive your decisions." She looked up at him. "The kids are still here. They're hurt, but they're here. And as long as you're honest with them and consistent with them, that part of your life isn't over." A long silence passed. Then Victoria asked, "Are you happy?" Henry looked through the small hospital window at the fading afternoon light. It wasn't the life he had planned. It wasn't the future he had built toward. But it was real. His home was peaceful now. His children trusted him. His work mattered. He slept without suspicion. He no longer shared a table with lies. And maybe happiness, he realized, wasn't always fireworks or triumph. Sometimes it was simply peace after prolonged confusion. "I'm not where I thought I'd be," he said. "But yes, I think I'm finally becoming someone I can be at peace with." Victoria closed her eyes for a moment as if absorbing that. When Henry left the room, he did not feel victorious. That was important. Victory would have made the story smaller. What he felt instead was closure. Not perfect closure, not cinematic closure. Real closure. The kind that arrives when you stop asking why someone hurt you and start accepting that their damage was never yours to fix. Over the next year, Victoria improved. Therapy, medication, routine, humility. She rebuilt her relationship with the children slowly, the only way anything real is ever rebuilt. Ryan became cordial first, Connor much later. Lily never stopped loving her, but finally stopped trying to save her. Henry watched all of it from a respectful distance. He and Victoria learned how to stand at graduations, concerts, games, and birthdays without poisoning the air around their children. They were no longer a family in the old sense, but they became something functional, something survivable, something honest. And honesty, Henry had learned, was worth more than appearances ever were. Years later, when people asked him how he got through it, he never gave them the dramatic answer they seemed to want. He didn't talk about revenge. He didn't talk about winning. He didn't talk about karma. He said something much simpler. He said betrayal teaches you two things. First, that love without truth is just dependency and nicer clothing. And second, that the strongest thing a person can do after being broken is refuse to become cruel in order to feel powerful again. That was what Henry Bailey learned. Not that pain makes you wise, not that suffering automatically builds character. But that clarity is a kind of mercy. And once you see people as they really are, you stop grieving the fantasy of who you hoped they might be. In the end, Victoria didn't lose Henry because Marcus entered the picture. She lost him the moment deception became easier to her than honesty, and Henry didn't rebuild his life by destroying hers. He rebuilt it by refusing to let her betrayal become the final definition of his own. Because in the end, the deepest kind of justice was never watching her collapse. It was realizing that while she was busy chasing a life built on illusion, he was quietly becoming the kind of man who no longer needed one.